My name is Ivor. I'm 73. And I disappear. Not like in the movies, not pretty. Nobody screams, doesn't cry, doesn't notice. Just one day you go into a store, and the salesperson looks through you. In the queue, they bypass you like air. The doctor nods, speaks of you in the third person. And at home, silence that hits your ribs. Silence that is no longer a rank, but a state. I live on the outskirts, an old house that is holding on with its last strength, like me. It is not well-groomed, no. But it hasn't broken either. Because there is a line between dilapidated and well-established. I haven't broken down yet either. Just shrunk. Curled up. The remains of the fire are ashes. But it is there. My son is the head of an IT company, more money than I ever had in all my accounts. My daughter is a psychotherapist, gives lectures on empathy, although she hasn't called for 6 months. Grandchildren are strangers. One only sends a selfie once a year with the caption, "I love you, Grandpa," automatic, like from a bank. The others are silent. When they come, they sit on their phones. For them, I am an unpleasant, sad truth about the future. Every day of mine is like a ritual of exile. Black tea, always without sugar. An old blanket that smells of mothballs and memory. The TV is muted. Words no longer have any meaning. I've seen them all. Now I just look. Sometimes out the window, where other lives go by. Sometimes at myself in the mirror. But less often. Because it's not me there. I don't miss it. It's different. Missing is when something is lost. And I myself have become a loss. I've been crossed out like a date on a calendar. Once I solved problems, now they don't even notice when I enter a room. When I walk past people, in their eyes I evoke neither respect, nor fear, nor even pity. Only indifference. And indifference is the purest form of contempt. But what's interesting, I'm not dead yet. I still remember. And I still think. Sometimes, at night, I open an old notebook. In it are names. Dates. Events. My whole life is laid out there, like a chessboard. I learned to see weaknesses. In people. In moments. In destinies. Then I used it to build. Now I'm learning to use it so as not to forget what I can. I don't forgive anymore. I used to think that strength is the ability to let go. Now I know, true strength is in silence. In the ability to watch, to be silent, and to wait. Because even the shaded sun still shines. And even the old wolf in the forest is a wolf. I don't ask anymore. But I still see. I'm still here. And this is just the beginning. Once upon a time, my name opened the door. Once upon a time, when I entered the hall, voices would fall silent. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make threats. But everyone knew, if I said it, it would happen. Without, maybe, without, I'll try, without, let's see. I was a force. But not the one that tears or breaks. I was the one that shapes and holds. The system. People. Life. In the 90s, when everything was bursting at the seams, I didn't leave. I stayed. I persevered. I pulled my family out of the void. They took out loans, not for apartments, but for a promise. And I paid. Always. I was betrayed, by partners, friends. More than once. But I never allowed myself to become like them. Their life is a deception for the sake of profit. Mine is a strategy for the sake of stability. And I won. I remember hiding my heart under my tie when my son was sick and I had to sit in on negotiations to get a contract. How I wrote reports myself at night when the accountants were running away. How my daughter cried over an exam and I hired her as a tutor, not having a penny to spare. I worked. I cursed. But I acted. I was the one who propped up the ceiling while everyone else slept. They called me Ivor Strategist. People came with problems, I didn't give advice. I gave a way out. I created routes where there were only thickets. And always, with a cold mind. Because the world does not spare the weak. And I was not weak. But the world has changed. Now everyone is looking for an easy one. Recognition is instant, gratitude is short. No one remembers who built the ground on which their success stands. Their house is made of my bricks. Their freedom is made of my decisions. Their education is from my sleepless nights. But today I am a shadow. I have been forgotten. My phone is silent. My voicemail is empty. On holidays, a card arrives from the bank, but not from my family. In the mirror, it is not the samurai I remember, but the old man they pass in lines. And yet I know who I was. And who I remain. I have not broken. I am waiting. Like a sniper. Silence is my position. Memory is my weapon. I can still see the core of things. People. Intentions. I am an iceberg. What is visible is not the main thing. The main thing is hidden. And if someone looked more closely, they would see, in the depths of my eyes, a blade still sparkles. I never thought I would break, not in battle, not in a catastrophe, but in silence. In things that have no sound. In things that you forget the next minute. But they grind you down like drops of stone. Last week I tried to call my son. Just to talk. Not to ask. Not to reproach. Just to be heard. He didn't answer. I wrote later, at a rally. I'll write back as soon as I can. That was on Monday. It's Saturday now. I'm still waiting. Another time I asked my grandson to help me set up the TV. He came with headphones in his ears, with a face like a salesman who was forced to work after hours. 5 minutes later, he was at the door. In parting, he said, "You're confusing everything yourself, Grandpa. It's all simple there." Simple. Maybe. But not when you're alone. Not when your fingers aren't so precise anymore, and the font on the screen seems to whisper instead of speak. But the most important thing is not in the house. It's outside. I dropped a bag of apples near the supermarket. 3 of them rolled onto the road. People were walking by. One woman, in a coat, looked and turned away. A guy in a hoodie stepped on them. They didn't say anything. They didn't help. I picked them up myself. Slowly. Every movement was like a blow. Not to the body. To the dignity. In the hospital, when I said I had back pain, the doctor didn't even look me in the eye. We understand everything. This is age. There's nothing to change. Sister, take him away. Him. Not Ivor. Not, sir. Just an object. I listen. I look. I write down. Every indifferent answer. Every face. Every then that never comes. I have a notebook. It's not for memories. It's for facts. 04. 09, didn't call back. 08. 09, Dr. Kravitz. Disdainful tone. 11. 09, grandson. Laughed. Didn't help. I became the registrar of my own disappearance. But they are wrong. I haven't forgotten how to play. I just learned to wait. This is not a scream, it's a growing silence. This is not tears, it's a sharpening blade. And I'm beginning to understand, they made a mistake. Because the strong can be feared. And the old, they ignore. And that's why I'll become invisible. And that's why, dangerous. What will happen next? I don't know. But every little thing is no longer a little thing. It's part of the structure. And someday this notebook will become a map. A map of the way back to my strength. It didn't happen loudly. Not like thunder, not like an explosion. More like a click. A barely audible click somewhere inside, in the place where there used to be a heart, then pain, and now a mechanism. I was carrying a bag from the pharmacy. Small. Not heavy. But my fingers couldn't hold it. It fell. It crumbled. The plastic container with the medicine rolled right under the feet of the young man with the coffee. He looked, and laughed. "Old man. Stay home. Someone nearby picked up, nobody needs you anymore. You barely move." Laughter. Like a hiss. Not even malicious, worse, indifferent. I left the bag. I stood and watched it lie on the asphalt like a body. At that moment, everything disappeared. The sun. The noise. People. Only the darkness that I had carried inside me for decades remained. I had held it back all my life. But now, I let it go. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just got up. I came home. I closed the door. I went into the bedroom. I stood in front of the mirror. I stared for a long time. Then I took down the picture from the wall. Behind it was a safe. I remembered the code. My fingers trembled, but I wasn't mistaken. There was an old phone without GPS. A notebook. A hard drive. And a photo. Black and white. We were 3 friends. Then we were still alive. Then we were still in the game. I was in the center. The only one looking straight into the lens. I opened the notebook. I leafed through it. There were pages from the past. Contacts. Schemes. People I once saved. Partners I once gave a start to. They are now influential. Powerful. But everyone is in debt. And they know it. Then there were old flash drives. Reports. Leaks. Photocopies. They were considered destroyed. But I kept them. Because I remembered, a true leader doesn't burn bridges. He keeps the keys. I sat down at the table. I raised my pen. And for the first time in years I felt a sane, crystal clear purpose. This is not anger. This is mathematics. This is not revenge, restoring balance. I have created a scheme. Like a chess game. Each person is a piece. Each event is a move. I am no longer a victim. I am an author. Some would think this is an illness. Dementia, perhaps. No. This is a trick. I am no longer a hunched-over old man who is insulted on the street. I am an architect. And the game is on. On the outside, everything remained the same. I was still wearing the same old raincoat. I was still walking slowly to the pharmacy, with a package in my hand. I was still sitting on the same bench by the entrance. And everyone thought I was the same as yesterday. Like last year. They forgot one detail: a monster doesn't change its appearance. It changes its perspective. I started small. An anonymous letter to the law firm that served my son. It contained a data leak. An old contract with violations. Date. Signature. And a source that, of course, no one could find. 2 weeks later, an audit. A month later, my son lost his license to operate. Scandal. Partners turned away. He didn't call. But I know, it was he who cried that night in the car outside the office. As I once did, for him. The pain came home. My grandson, the one who laughed at me, is an athlete, a brand ambassador. I knew where he was weak, his reputation. Image. I found old photos. Him at a party, underage, with alcohol and cigarettes. I didn't publish it. I just sent it to the brand he had just signed a contract with. The contract was cancelled. The money was lost. A public statement: we are breaking off relations with a person who violates the company's values. The others, those who had once betrayed, laughed at, despised, they also received their signals. One lost a grant, another lost his position. Not because of me directly. But I pulled the strings, and the dolls began to fall. Nothing changed in my house. Except for one thing, tension. It fills the air. People started calling. At first rarely. Then, every day. Dad, how are you? Can we come? Grandpa, I thought here. But I didn't answer. Silence became the answer. Every silence is like a nail in the wooden door of the past. Now they listen. Because they are afraid. I don't take revenge for the sake of revenge. I restore balance. I force them to see the truth, who they have become, and who I was. In the window opposite, the grandson stands with a phone in his hand. He doesn't take pictures. He just looks here. As I once looked, to where indifference came from. And now, they live in expectation. And each new day for them, not peace, but the question, what else? Who's next? And I? I just drink tea. And write down the dates. Because this is not the end. This is a new order. They didn't come right away, as confessions without coercion rarely do. First, the calls. Then, the messages, we need to talk, we need to discuss everything. Dad, where are you? I didn't answer. I didn't want to seem weak at a moment when they themselves felt fragile. Let them wait. Let them feel the same uncertainty that those who were abandoned once felt. When they entered my house, a strange tension arose, like before the start of a confession. My son stood in the doorway, his face tired from work and shock. My daughter held her hands folded, as if at a lecture, but her eyes were different, not professionally cold, but full of bitter wine. My grandchildren were quiet, confused. They didn't come to save me, they came to seek explanations. Explanations that wouldn't absolve them of responsibility. The conversations began with attempts to justify themselves. The son said the word, misunderstanding, the daughter said, stress, someone said, too much work. They were looking for reasons in the outside. No one wanted to look inside. But I didn't let them escape anymore. They expected me to scream, cry, accuse. But I had a different format of strength, not hysteria, but a look. I didn't start anything first. My silence worked by itself. They spoke more, trying to fill the void. Every word was like a hint of guilt. Every pause was like a gap in their story. I listened. I watched. And when my son finally fell to his knees, not from a Japanese dramatic scene, but from the simple human need to be asked, I felt something break in them. My grandchildren looked into my eyes longer than usual. The gaze that had previously been directed at the phone now met mine directly. I saw an unexpected heaviness in them, the fear of being the way others would see them. And I said nothing. No instruction, no judgment. My silent blow was more effective. Their faces spoke more than any lines. Apologies appeared, short, confused. They brought coffee, tried to get me off the couch, offered help, promised changes. But there was no longer any need for my instructions. Surprise, that was what I wanted to give. So that they would open their eyes not because of my scream, but because of their own guilt, their own fear, and their own awareness. No one rushed to hug me in gratitude. No one said, "Thank you, Dad." Instead, there was silence that weighed more than words. They didn't know all the mechanisms of this game, they didn't know who pulled the strings. And perhaps that was enough for them, to live with the suspicion that their actions could have consequences. I returned to my desk. I opened my notebook. My hands knew what to write. This wasn't another impulsive act of revenge. This was a text for myself, a summary of the lesson. A letter that had no means of exposing me, but had the power to record everything I had experienced in my last act of consciousness. I am writing this slowly, like a person getting up after a long journey. The last entry. Today I saw their eyes. I saw not only fear, but also the beginning of understanding. No one thanks. No one knows the truth. And in this, truth is enough. Old age is not the end, not a punishment. Old age is a stage where you see everything, what was hidden under the slogan, forget. My power was not in fists and not in money. It was in observation, in memory, and in things that no one notices until the moment when all the masks fall off. I do not want blood. I want the truth. And it is present now. Let them live with it. I closed the notebook. It was not a triumphant conclusion, nor a peaceful end. It was a lesson I gave to those who once took from me not only years, but also respect. I did not dedicate this power to myself, I handed it over to the silence that forced them to look. When they left, I looked at their backs. No one changed instantly. But I saw the beginning, a small crack in the armor of their indifference. And that was enough. Old age is not the end. It is a stage of strength that sees everything. And the fear of this power is the purest form of punishment for those who thought they could be invisible when they ruined someone's life.
Subscribe and like this video, more interesting revenge stories of elderly people coming soon.